Heartwarming encounter. Struggling mother seeks shelter from billionaire in Snowstorm. His unexpected transformation. Snow fell heavily over the small Midwest town, transforming familiar streets into a chaotic whiteout. Sarah, a hardworking single mother of two, clutched her children close as the wind whipped around them, an icy reminder of their struggles. She was on her way back from her second job at the diner when the storm hit, panic rising in her throat as visibility faded. With every step she thought of her kids, Emily, just 8, and little Ben, only 5. All she wanted was to provide them with warmth and comfort, especially in a moment like this as the storm raged on. The kids shivered and cried out from cold. Their home was too far to reach. Just then, near the edge of the street, a gleaming hotel sign flickered in the distance, almost like a beacon of hope. The opulence of the place felt surreal amidst the turmoil. It was owned by Mark, a billionaire who maintained a distance from the local community, secluded in his wealth and luxury. But Sarah had to try. She had no choice. With her heart pounding, she wrapped her arms around her children and hurried toward the sanctuary of the hotel's doors. When Sarah stepped inside, the warmth enveloped her, but Mark looked up from his desk, a frown creasing his brow. "I can't," he began, but as he met her weary gaze, something in her desperate eyes made him pause. The exhaustion and determination written on her face shifted something within him. Worrying about business deals felt trivial compared to the mother pleading for shelter. With a reluctant sigh, he motioned her inside, hands still gloved in the fabric of his lavish suit. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt relief wash over her as they settled in the lobby. The warmth was a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. She hesitated, then began sharing stories of long shifts at the diner and nights spent folding laundry as her babies slept. The corner of her mouth twisted in a half-smile as she recounted the time Ben accidentally spilled grape juice all over the carpet. Mark listened, and for the first time, the facade of his gilded life cracked a little. "Do you ever sleep?" he finally asked, his rich voice laced with genuine curiosity. "You should take care of yourself too." She laughed softly. "I wish I could. But my kids come first." Hours passed and the storm howled louder outside. As they talked, Sarah mentioned veterans in the town, the brave souls who returned from wars only to find life had moved on without them. Mark's heart wrenched. The contrast between their worlds was glaring. He was sheltered, but she was brave, her love for her children pushing her to the brink. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. But as the hour grew late, an uncomfortable silence filled the space. Sarah couldn't shake the sense that Mark had secret shadows from a past he wasn't ready to share. She sensed a tension stirring in the air. He faced a choice that could transcend their divide. Would he remain in a bubble of luxury, or could he step into the world she knew? A simple yet beautiful fight for a better future? Outside, the storm intensified, but that uncertainty warmed her with possibilities, leaving her anxiously waiting for his next words. As a storm raged not only around them but within their hearts. The wind whistled through the hotel's majestic entrance, shaking the glass doors as snow piled in frantic drifts outside. Sarah studied Mark's face, searching for any hint of the man beneath the wealth. She had seen determination in him, just as she bore it in her own weary heart. Conversations about dreams and aspirations began forming in her mind, but she didn't know how to bridge the gap between them. "Why do you keep to yourself?" she asked, curiosity overcoming her shyness. Mark's brow furrowed, his ice blue eyes narrowing slightly as if gauging the question's intent. "It's easier," he replied finally, his voice a low rumble. "People are complicated. Emotions, they're messy." Sarah shook her head gently. "But that's what makes us human. It's the messiness that connects us." Her words hung in the air, heavy with truth. She wanted him to see, truly see, the beauty and vulnerability, the strength it takes to let others in. Mark clenched his jaw, a flicker of conflicted emotion crossing his features. "And what if I can't? What if it just leads to more disappointment?" "Then you keep trying," she said, her tone soft but firm. a mother's resolve infusing her words. Disappointment is part of life, but so are love and joy. You don't know what you're missing. She gestured around the elaborately decorated lobby. This might look beautiful, but it's lonely if you're just hiding away. The silence that followed felt profound, as though the very walls held their breath. Mark stared down at his hands, the designer glove still clasped in his grip. He seemed apprehensive, caught between two worlds: the safe one of wealth where problems could be bought away, and the unpredictable maze of emotions Sarah navigated daily. "Tell me more about your kids," he murmured, a shadow of a smile teasing the corners of his mouth. It marked the first step toward something different. Sarah beamed, her heart lightening at the opportunity. "Emily loves to dance. She's always spinning around the living room like she's in her own world." She remembered the way her daughter's laughter echoed off the walls, chasing away any lingering sadness. And Ben? He's obsessed with dinosaurs. Just the other day, he declared he's going to invent a time machine to meet them. Mark couldn't help but chuckle at her enthusiasm. The weight on his shoulders felt lighter, if only just for a moment. He could picture them, small and full of life, darting through the modest apartment that echoed with laughter. "What would they think if they saw me like this?" he asked, half joking but with a sincerity that caught Sarah off guard. "I think they would love you for helping their mom," she responded, warmth flooding her voice. "Kids see the heart before they see the suit." In her words, Mark found truth, a connection sparking between them. He glanced out the window at the swirling snow, caught in a whirlwind of thoughts. Maybe I should help," he said quietly, resolve forming inside him like new roots breaking through ice. But just then, the hotel's door swung open with a loud thud, and a figure stumbled inside, half buried in snow, cutting through the fragile moment they were building. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the newcomer, a neighbor from her street. The tension shifted instantly, her quiet conversation with Mark derailing into uncertainty, as she realized that whatever decision he was making could be interrupted or tested. "Sarah," the newcomer gasped, breathless and wide-eyed. "You won't believe what I just saw." Sarah's heart raced. The storm may have brought her here, but it also threatened to unravel the beginnings of a bond that was so delicately forming. What could this new arrival reveal about their world that she had strived to protect? As Mark's piercing gaze shifted between her and the unexpected guest, Sarah knew the real storm was about to unfold, and she yearned for the courage to face whatever lay ahead. "Sarah, you have to see this. It's Trevor, he's in trouble." The neighbor's panicked eyes swept the lobby, finally locking onto Sarah's. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she pushed aside her budding connection with Mark. "What do you mean?" she asked, instinctively trying to keep her voice calm. "He fell down the hill by the park. His ankle looks bad. I ran to find you." The urgency in her voice sent a chill down Sarah's spine. Trevor, a little boy who often played with Emily and Ben, was in distress. Mark shifted, a new tension tightening his features as he stepped closer. "Let me help," he said, the words bursting from his lips before he could think. "No, you don't have to." Sarah started, but she could see the determination in his eyes, the way they mirrored her own resolve. "I want to," he insisted, even as his neatly pressed suit contrasted sharply with the chaos erupting around them. There was something raw about his willingness, something that flickered to life between them amidst the growing worry. Together they rushed outside, the wind biting at their faces. The world was a blur of white, the snow coming down heavier than before. Sarah could barely make out the park's outlines, but the urgency propelled her forward. She could hear the faint whimpers of Trevor up ahead. Arriving at the hill, Sarah found Trevor sitting in the snow, his tiny figure curled up, tears freezing on his cheeks. The sight made her heart ache. She knelt down beside him, brushing the snow from his hair, trying to offer comfort. "Hey buddy, it's okay. We're here. Can you tell me what happened?" "I slipped, it hurts," he sniffed, the words coming out in a shaky breath. Mark knelt next to Sarah, assessing the situation with an air of quiet confidence that surprised her. "Can you move your foot for me, Trevor?" he asked gently. Trevor winced but managed a nod. As he tried to shift, the pain etched on his face made Sarah's stomach turn. She looked back at Mark, his focus unwavering. "I think we need to get him to the hospital," he said. "What if I take him?" Sarah asked, desperation creeping into her voice. "I can run back and grab my car." Mark shook his head. his expression clearly determined. No time. I have an SUV. We'll get him quickly, I promise. The urgency and fear surrounding them seemed to warp time. Yet in that moment, Sarah felt an odd mix of gratitude and connection with Mark. As they lifted Trevor together, Sarah felt the warmth of Mark beside her, their hands brushing against each other as they moved, silently reassuring. They hurriedly made their way back to the hotel, Trevor nestled between them, Sarah whispering calming words as she held his small hand tightly. Inside the lobby, chaos erupted as guests saw an injured child being carried in, phones already out to document the scene. Sarah felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. The social pressure of being a single mother and the expectation of having everything under control crashing in. Mark turned to her, his brows furrowed, worry etching deeper lines on his forehead. You okay? I don't know, Sarah began, her voice trailing off as the fear for Trevor consumed her thoughts. The paramedics arrived swiftly, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes had just risen beyond physical safety. She glanced at Mark and for a moment, the tension softened, replaced by understanding the invisible bond they had started to build was now challenged by life's unpredictability. As the paramedic assessed Trevor, Sarah felt raw vulnerability swell in her chest. Here they were, all strangers bound by the fierce tide of circumstances. Mark's eyes held hers for a moment too long, the heat of connection sparking electric between them again, just as Trevor whimpered at the bad news he didn't want to hear. Before long the medic announced he'll be fine, but we need to stabilize him for a few hours. Need to keep an eye on that ankle. Relief flooded Sarah's chest. Mark reached over and squeezed her shoulder gently, a gesture of solidarity that sent warmth through her. But as she looked around at the towering hotel, its opulence and overwhelming demands suddenly felt suffocating. Can we take him too? Sarah's voice was shaky, unsure if she was truly speaking her thoughts, or if she was now acting on something deeper, both a plea for connection and a mother's hope. Mark offered a pained smile, his own heart swaying between duty and desire. And just then, amid the chaos, another figure burst through the door this time. It was someone from Sarah's past, a face she thought she'd never see again. Her stomach clenched. Was this the twist that would unravel everything she had just built? As her breath hitched, she realized this night might change everything. Just when she was beginning to understand what she truly wanted. The crowd parted and there he was, Danny, her high school sweetheart, the one she never thought she'd see again. He looked older, more rugged, but those familiar dark eyes still held that spark from her memories. Danny, Sarah whispered, disbelief knotting her stomach. He moved closer, a mix of concern and surprise mirrored in his features. Sarah? I heard about Trevor from a friend at the bar. I rushed over as soon as I could. Why are you here? The words escaped her lips before she could stop them. She was caught between relief and a rush of emotions that threatened to swallow her whole. Before he could respond, the paramedics shifted Trevor onto a stretcher, the little boy quiet now, drugged for the pain. She felt Mark's reassuring presence beside her, but the familiar comfort crumbled a bit with Danny's arrival. Sarah knew they were both looking at her, and she felt exposed, caught in a triangle of old and new feelings. He's going to be okay, she said, her voice steady, though inside she felt like she was unraveling. Mark stepped slightly away, discomfort evident on his face as Danny's presence shifted the atmosphere. I can help, he offered, but his eyes flicked to Sarah, searching for direction. Danny's brow furrowed in concern. What happened? I thought he was with you. Emily and Ben, my kids, they were playing. She took a deep breath, locking eyes with Trevor as he was lifted toward the ambulance. We need to go, he needs us. Danny nodded, but the tension in the air was thick. Let me come with you. I can drive. No, Mark is driving. Sarah felt a rush of defensiveness. She didn't want to hurt Danny, but the connection with Mark was overwhelming at that moment. I can take care of this, Mark said, a hint of irritation creeping in. Take care of what? Danny's tone was demanding, the protective side of him surfacing. Some guy in a suit can't just swoop in and play the hero. And what about you? The prodigal ex returns? Tell me, were you just passing through? Mark's voice was tight with tension. Sarah's heart raced. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The worry for Trevor, the relief that he would be fine, and now this, an old chapter clashing with a new one. I just came to see you, Sarah, Danny replied, his voice softening. I didn't expect this. I swear I care about you and the kids. Mark clenched his jaw, frustration evident. Sarah felt trapped between two worlds, two men vying for her attention in an unpredictable moment. Stop it. She finally snapped, words bursting forth like a dam breaking. This isn't about either of you. This is about Trevor. A hush fell over them, the seriousness of the situation snapping everyone back to reality as the paramedics loaded Trevor into the ambulance. Danny stepped closer to Sarah, his expression softening. I'm sorry. I just want to help you. Then let me handle this first. She shot back, her heart racing with a mix of urgency and fear. She felt unsteady, caught in a storm of emotions, both for her son and the man who had suddenly reappeared in her life. Mark took a step back, watching her, the storm of his own feelings swirling behind his calm facade. As the ambulance doors closed, Sarah missed the warmth of connection she had felt with him earlier. The world moved around her, and she stood at the center of it, confused and afraid of her next choice. Let us go, she finally said, turning to Danny, who now felt like an anchor pulling her into turbulent waters. But Mark's hand reached out, catching her arm gently. Sarah. His voice held a weight of something unsaid, something deeper than just this moment. Can we talk later? She asked, knowing she would have to face the decisions around her heart, but fearing she might not be ready. Yes, he replied softly, his eyes filled with understanding, making her heart ache all the more as they walked toward the parking lot. Sarah felt like she was teetering on a tightrope, the ground below uncertain. There was something almost thrilling about change, but just as terrifying too. Then she heard the familiar hum of an engine. Only, this time it wasn't the familiar sound of Mark's SUV, it was the rumble of Danny's car. A stark reminder of a life she thought she had left behind. What choices would she make? And could she really let go of the safety she felt with Mark if her past was reaching into her present? With her breath caught in her throat, Sarah faced the unknown once again. Would she brave the currents of her heart? Or would she let the tide carry her wherever it willed? The engine rattled as Danny turned the key, the sound almost lost in the whirlwind of Sarah's thoughts. She settled into the passenger seat, her mind racing with unanswered questions. She wanted to scream to break free from this tension, but instead, she secured her seatbelt and looked straight ahead. Are you okay? Danny's voice cut through her haze, filled with concern. Yeah, just trying to keep it together, she replied, her tone a little sharper than intended. She didn't want him to worry, but the reality was overwhelming. Trevor was in pain, and the worry gnawed at her insides. Danny nodded, but the silence in the car screamed louder than words. He reached for the radio but hesitated, clearly not wanting to intrude. Just put on something, she finally said, her voice softer now, the edge dulling under the weight of her emotions. He flicked the knob and soft music filled the space, a mellow tune that did little to soothe her racing heart. They drove through town, the familiar streets now feeling foreign, like a shadow of the past she couldn't quite grasp. Trevor's strong, Danny said after a moment, breaking the silence again. He'll pull through. Sarah managed a tight nod, but doubt crept in. I should have been watching them. Kids are resilient. They bounce back. You're a great mom, Sarah. They are lucky to have you, he said, his voice sincere. It was strange how his words reminded her of who she once was, the girl who believed in possibilities. Her heart fluttered, reminding her of old, cherished feelings. Thanks, Danny. That means a lot. But inside, doubts tangled with her gratitude. How could she even begin to sort out her feelings? When they arrived at the hospital, the fluorescent lights were jarring, cutting through the murkiness of her thoughts. Danny parked and jumped out before she could unbuckle her seatbelt. He was around the car in an instant, holding the door open. Let us get in there. As they walked toward the entrance, the reality of her situation slapped her in the face. Trevor was just beyond those doors, and anxiety twisted in her stomach. She felt Danny's presence beside her, solid and reassuring, but the recognition of Mark's absence stung. Would he still be waiting for her? Would he understand her choices? Those thoughts hung in the air as they entered the ER. The chaos was overwhelming, nurses and doctors moving swiftly, families huddled together, worry etched on their faces. Where do we go? Danny asked, scanning the frenetic scene. Over there, Sarah pointed toward the reception desk, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. As they approached, relief washed over her when she caught sight of Emily and Ben nestled in the waiting area, their features clouded with worry. "Mom!" Emily cried, rushing into her embrace while Ben trailed behind, his eyes wide and fearful. "I'm here, honey. It's going to be okay," Sarah murmured, holding her kids tightly. They were her world, her reason to stay strong. But as she held them, she felt Danny's presence lingering nearby, a grounding force in a whirlwind of emotions. "Is he okay?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Sarah pulled back just enough to meet her daughter's eyes. "He will be. You know your brother, right? He is tough." As she spoke, Sarah caught a glimpse of Danny standing just a couple of steps back, his expression soft, genuinely invested in this moment. But as the children looked up at her, searching for reassurance, she knew she was threading a delicate line. "Let me check in," she said finally, lifting herself off the ground and stepping toward the reception desk, heart beating erratically. "You okay?" Danny asked quietly, following closely behind. "No, but I will be," she admitted, glancing briefly at him before refocusing on the task at hand. Questions began swirling again, a brewing storm of emotions she wasn't sure how to face. As they stood together at the desk, she felt the echo of their shared past hanging in the air. Was this a reunion? Or just a reminder of what she had lost? Would their connection somehow change her decisions about Mark? Then, just as the receptionist began asking for details, a loud commotion caught their attention from the waiting area. Sarah's heart sank. Whatever it was, it seemed to pulse with urgency. Her instincts flared, and she turned to Danny, dread clawing at her throat. "Let us see what's going on," he said, breaking into a jog toward the noise. Sarah followed, and as they approached, she caught a glimpse of familiar nurses, the tension high, and a sudden realization landed heavily in her stomach. What if Trevor's condition had taken a turn? What if... With a deep breath, she stepped into the chaotic scene, her heart hammering in her chest again. Would she be able to face this? And in the midst of all that was changing, who would ultimately stand beside her when the dust settled? Sarah pushed through the crowd, weaving her way to the source of the commotion. The rising voices and hurried movements of the medical staff sent an electric jolt of anxiety through her. A knot twisted tighter in her stomach. "Stay close," Danny said, his tone firm but calm. He held her hand, anchoring her amidst the chaos. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, a tiny beacon of comfort in this storm of uncertainty. As they neared the front of the waiting area, Sarah caught sight of a nurse, her face pale, speaking urgently into a phone. Nearby, a group of family members huddled together, tears streaking their cheeks. Sarah's heart pounded as she tried to catch snippets of conversation, her mind racing with despair. "What's happening?" she whispered to Danny, but her voice trembled as fear huddled close. "Not sure. I think they're dealing with a serious case," he replied, his brows furrowed. She locked her eyes on a doctor who suddenly emerged from the emergency room. He scanned the room, and when his gaze landed on Sarah, a sudden wave of recognition crossed his face. He approached them, looking serious but not panicked. "Are you here for Trevor?" he asked, his voice steady. Yes, my son. How is he?" Sarah felt as if the world had come to a halt, waiting for his answer. "There was a complication during his treatment, but we've stabilized him for now. I recommend you come in and see him, but we need to ask a few questions before you do." The words felt like a floodgate opening within her. A rush of relief flooded in, mingled with fear and uncertainty. "Can I take my kids in?" "Just you for now. We'll get them to you once he is settled," he said, urgency in his voice. Danny squeezed her hand tighter. "You can do this," he murmured, giving her strength when she felt weak. "Okay," she replied, assigning herself a moment of resolve. She glanced back at Emily and Ben, who stood together, their eyes wide and worried. Fresh worry flickered through her. "I'll be right back," she promised them. She followed the doctor through the swinging doors, the fluorescent lights above buzzing, amplifying the intensity of the moment. Each step felt monumental, giving rise to echoes of the past, of laughter, of holding him as a baby, of being that carefree mom. Inside, the room was dim and filled with the rhythmic beeping of machines. Trevor lay there, tiny and fragile, but he seemed to be asleep. Relief flooded Sarah's heart, but another wave of panic hit as she noticed the four connected to his arm, the tube snaking in and out, both aiding and hindering. "Mom!" His voice was feeble, strained, but it was unmistakably him. "Hey bud, I'm right here," but tears blurred her vision. She moved closer to his bedside, brushing his hair back. Seeing him like this was gut-wrenching. "Did something happen?" he asked, fear flickering in his eyes. "No honey, nothing's going to happen. You're safe. It's going to be okay," she whispered, her own voice trembling as she sought to console him. Trevor clutched her hand weakly but looked up at her, full of trust. "Promise?" "Promise," she replied, and squeezing his hand, she felt his warmth reassuringly surge into her being. A moment of calm settled over her. But then it hit her, heart raced with the thought of what lay beyond the room. She had to decide how to handle Mark while also being here for Trevor. What would she say? How would she even begin to explain? Suddenly, the tension seeped back as another doctor entered, intertwined with the buzzing of her unpredictable future. Sarah's breath caught as the doctor leaned towards her, an unreadable expression shadowing his face. "Mrs. Allen, we need to discuss some things about Trevor's condition." Her heart sank again. She took in a breath, trying to stabilize herself. What was going to unfold now? As the doctor continued speaking, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change more than she ever anticipated. Danny was waiting for her outside, but her world felt even heavier than before. Would she survive this, and what would it mean for her and her children? The doctor's gaze weighed heavy on Sarah, filled with a mix of concern and urgency. "We've managed to stabilize Trevor, but I want to talk to you about the next steps. There are treatment options we need to discuss that could affect his recovery." As his words sank in, so did the reality of the situation. Sarah could feel the walls of the room pressing inward, like a vice, each pulse of Trevor's heart echoing her own rising panic. What do you mean? What kind of options?" she stammered, trying to remain composed. The doctor cleared his throat, his voice steady but firm. "Given Trevor's condition, we have a few paths we can take. I won't sugarcoat it, we need to be proactive. He requires specialized care that may involve transferring him to a different facility." "Transferring?" The word hung in the air like a dark cloud. "Are you saying he's not safe here?" He shifted his weight, looking troubled. "No, that's not it. He's being well cared for, but we need to consider advanced therapies that this hospital may not provide. It's about giving him the best chance. I'll need your consent to move forward." Trepidation crept into her heart as she imagined Trevor in another facility, surrounded by unfamiliar faces and sterile rooms. Wasn't this place enough? But deep down, a flicker of hope ignited. He'd previously fought through so much. She had to believe he could continue to conquer this challenge too. Will he be okay? Is he stable enough to be moved? Sarah questioned, her voice barely above a whisper, fear creeping back into her veins. "His vitals are stable for now," the doctor said, maintaining eye contact with her. "But I need you to understand waiting too long could lead to complications." The weight of the decision pressed down on her. Sarah envisioned Trevor, brave and bright, facing this battle. He deserve to linger in uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, she held on to hope and promised herself that whatever path she chose, it would be for him. "'Kay," she said. "What do we need to do?" A flicker of gratitude passed across the doctor's features. "I appreciate your understanding. Let me explain the options in detail and we can make arrangements." As he detailed the treatment options, Sarah felt a sense of clarity cutting through the haze of fear. Each step they discussed felt like a brick, leading them away from the darkness that threatened to engulf them. She took notes, keeping her focus sharp. Trevor needed her to be strong, focused, and determined. Meanwhile, as the doctor spoke, she couldn't shake the thought of Danny waiting outside. What was he thinking? Did he feel as helpless as she did? She longed for his reassuring presence, to feel anchored in the storm that was churning around her. When the conversation finally wrapped, the doctor stepped out to make the arrangements. Sarah turned her phone over in her hands, wanting to reach out to Danny, but also knowing he needed her to focus on Trevor. Suddenly, she heard a muffled sound, a weak cry coming from Trevor. She hurried back to the bedside, where she found his eyes wide with fear again, glistening with unshed tears. "Mom, what is happening?" His voice was hoarse and small. "It's okay, baby. The doctor just wants to help you get better," she whispered, her fingers brushing against his cheek. "I promise you're going to be okay. Can't we just go home?" he asked, the innocence of his question cutting through her heart. "Oh, my sweet Trevor," she murmured, fighting to keep her voice steady. "It may feel like a lot right now and I wish we could. But we need a little more time. I know you're strong enough." He squeezed her hand, uncertainty dancing in his eyes. Sarah felt a pang of guilt. How could she explain the weight of their situation without scaring him further? "What if they can't fix me?" His voice broke, tremors lacing through each word. "Trevor, look at me," she said, meeting his gaze head-on. "We're going to fight this together. You and me. Every step of the way. I won't let anything happen to you." The earnestness in her voice seemed to soothe him, even just a bit. As they locked eyes, Sarah sensed the unbreakable bond between them. The journey ahead felt treacherous, but she knew they would weather it together. Just then, a shuddering breath escaped her lips. Would she have the strength to fight the demons lurking beyond the hospital walls? And what awaited her once the reality of their situation set in? As these thoughts spiraled in her mind, the heavy door swung open again. A nurse stepped through looking harried. "Mrs. Allen, we need you to step out for a moment. We're preparing Trevor for transport." The urgency in her voice sent a wave of anxiety through Sarah. Transport? She swallowed hard, her heart slamming against her ribcage. What was about to happen next? The nurse's words hung in the air, sharp and demanding. Sarah felt the floor shift beneath her feet. "Transport where? Is he really ready for that?" she asked, a tremor creeping into her voice. "Just a moment, Mrs. Allen. We need you to step outside so we can get him ready." "It won't take long," the nurse responded, trying to sound calm, but her clipped tone suggested otherwise. Sarah's heart raced as memories of Trevor's frail body surged in her mind. I don't like this," she whispered, her voice strained. The thought of someone else taking control felt suffocating. Just a week ago they were planning his birthday party. Now they were transporting him like a package. "Mom, please don't go," Trevor's voice broke in, the fear lacing his request sharper than any words could convey. Her heart clenched at the sight of him curled against the sheets, so small in such a big bed. She leaned close, brushing her fingers through his hair. "I have to go for just a minute. They need to prepare things, but I'll be right outside, okay?" He nodded, though the uncertainty in his eyes made it clear he wasn't convinced. "Promise," he whispered, his small voice choking on his fear. "I promise," Sarah said firmly, forcing a smile. She straightened herself and squeezed his hand tightly, then reluctantly followed the nurse into the hallway, leaving behind a piece of her heart. The hallway was bright, ugly fluorescent lights bathing everything in a sterile glow. Other nurses hurried by, their faces set like they were on a mission. She leaned against the wall, her mind racing. What if they couldn't stabilize him again? What if this was the start of a downward spiral? She inhaled deeply, trying to suppress the flood of panic threatening to break through. Minutes dragged like hours as she paced outside. She replayed Trevor's fragile smile in her mind, the way he squeezed her hand like it was air and he was drowning. As if sensing her turmoil, Danny appeared at the end of the hallway. His brow was furrowed, worry etched all over his face. "Sarah!" He rushed over, wrapping her in his arms. The warmth of his body was a momentary refuge from the cold reality surrounding them. "How is he?" Danny pulled back, peering into her eyes, searching for certainty. His voice was low, almost a whisper, as if saying it out loud could make it true. "They're preparing him for transport," she admitted, biting her lip as a tear slipped down her cheek. What if it doesn't work out?" Danny's hands cupped her face gently. "The doctor said they have good options, right? You're stronger than you think, Sarah." "I don't feel strong," she replied, her voice trembling. "I feel lost and scared." He breathed deeply, sharing his strength like a lifeline. "You're not alone in this. We'll get through it. You and Trevor both." Just then, a hospital curtain rustled nearby, and a doctor emerged, looking serious. Sarah's heart dropped. That look meant answers, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for them. He approached them, his eyes darting between Sarah and Danny. "Mrs. Allen, we're ready to move Trevor now. I know this feels like a lot, but we believe this is the best course of action." His words hung heavily between them. She would have to let go. The very thought made her stomach twist. Can I be with him during the transfer?" The doctor hesitated. "I'm afraid it's protocol. We need everyone to stay clear for safety reasons. But I assure you you'll be updated every step of the way." Sarah felt the ground beneath her shift again. her grip on hope wavering. The weight of uncertainty pressed down harder on her shoulders. She took a deep breath, trying not to collapse under it. As the doctor moved away, Danny still held tightly to her hand. "You've got to stay strong for Trevor," he said softly, his eyes fierce with determination. "Stay strong," she echoed, the reminder swirling around her. But what if she didn't have it in her at all? She felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. She was supposed to be the rock, the source of strength for her son. But even as tears threatened to spill again, Sarah understood she had to draw from wherever she could. Trevor needed her. She needed to take this leap, to step beyond the confines of fear for the sake of his little heart. Just then the steady thrum of her phone buzzed in her pocket. Heart racing, she glanced at the screen. A message from her sister popped up. She opened it, her eyes flying across the words. "Just heard about Trevor. I'm coming. Hang in there." With that small flicker of love, something shifted within her. If she was going to face whatever came next, she needed to embody hope for Trevor, for herself, and for everyone who cared. But would she find the strength in time? Or would she crumble before the storm? The nurse reappeared. "Mrs. Allen, it's time." The words echoed in her mind. Hope swelled inside her like a tide, but she couldn't shake the cold grip of fear. What awaited them at the other side of this journey? Would they find the healing they desperately sought? The nurse's voice was steady, but it felt like a chisel against Sarah's heart. "You need to follow me now," she urged gently, leading Sarah further down the fluorescent-lit corridor. Every echo of her footsteps reminded Sarah of the uncertainty that swirled around her like a fraying thread. "Just breathe," Danny said, his presence a stabilizing force even as he walked closely behind her. But Sarah felt more like a marionette, strings tangled and pulled in directions she never expected to go. What if this was a bad decision? What if they were making everything worse? Before she knew it, they reached a set of double doors. The nurse paused, turning to face her. "We'll be monitoring him closely during transport. You'll get updates as soon as we can." Nodding, Sarah felt the knot in her stomach tighten. "Can I at least see him one more time before you go?" The nurse hesitated but then nodded slightly. "One moment." As the door swung open, a wave of emotions hit her. There was Trevor, looking so small and fragile against the bright white sheets. He was surrounded by machines beeping softly, wires trailing from him like tendrils of ivy. Memories of his laughter filled her mind, moments of spending lazy Saturdays coloring, planning silly adventures. "Mom!" Trevor's voice brightened for a split second despite the circumstances. He smiled weakly, but Sarah could see the fear shadowing his eyes. "I'm right here, sweetheart. They're just getting you ready for something that will help." "It'll be okay," she said, trying to project the confidence she didn't quite feel. He squirmed a little. A flicker of pain flashed across his face. "Can't you come with me?" That deep well of guilt bubbled up. If only she could hold his hand all the way through. "I can't, but I'll be waiting for you, I promise," she reassured him, her voice breaking slightly. "I don't want to be alone," he whispered, and at that moment, it felt as if 1,000 shards of glass stabbed through her heart. "You're never alone, Trev. I'm always with you," Sarah insisted, her grip firm on his hand even as she felt the nurse gently moving her away. They took him from her grasp, wheels squeaking against the sterile floor, the machines trailing behind like distant thunder. She swallowed hard as tears brimmed against her lashes. Danny's hand squeezed her shoulder. A silent message that they were in this together. What if it goes wrong? What if Sarah couldn't finish her thoughts? "I know it's terrifying," Danny replied gently, his eyes soft yet fierce. "But we can't give in to fear. We need to believe in the possibility of hope." With a shaky breath, Sarah forced herself to nod. The truth was, deep down she wanted to believe too. She wanted to have faith in the doctors, in the treatment, in the light at the end of this harrowing tunnel. As they watched the doors close, Sarah felt a small, sudden sting of disappointment in herself. She should be stronger, more resolute. But she couldn't ignore the raw ache that pounded in her chest. What if her hope wasn't enough? What if Trevor needed more than just her belief? A minute passed, then 10, each second stretching between them like an agonizing eternity. She and Danny sat in a waiting area, silence wrapping around them like an uncomfortable blanket. All around her, medical staff hurried past, their faces a blur of focus and determination. "Do you want to get a coffee or something?" Danny finally asked, his break in the quiet jarring. No, she replied, shaking her head. I need to be here. What if they need us? What if he wakes up? You're right. Let us just wait, he said, and settled deeper into the chair beside her with time. Her thoughts circled back to the message from her sister. Emma was coming, and that flicker of love felt warm. Maybe it was the reminder she needed, the grounding she craved. But would it be enough to carry them through whatever storm awaited next? The intercom crackled to life, jerking Sarah's mind back to the present, her heart pounding in response. Room 302, patient update. The words sliced through her like a knife. Would it be good news? Or would this be a moment in time that would change everything? As she turned to Danny, she felt her voice catch. What if it's bad? Then we face it together, he said. His eye contact strong and unwavering. No matter what, we'll take it one step at a time. And in that moment, as the fears pressed against her, she clung to his words. But just as she steeled herself for whatever news awaited them, a figure appeared at the end of the hall, the doctor looking weary yet determined. Mrs. Allen, her breath hitched. Would the answers ease the weight on her heart? Or would they shatter her hope altogether? The doctor's approach felt like an eternity. Time suspended as Sarah's heart raced, each thump echoing her fears. She shifted in her seat, gripping Danny's hand tightly, the warmth grounding her against the uncertainty looming before them. The air felt thick, hanging with unspoken words. Mrs. Allen, the doctor began, his voice steady but cautious. Trevor is stable, and we're moving forward with the transfer. The specialists are confident about the next steps. A wave of relief surged through Sarah, but it was quickly followed by another wave of anxiety. What does that mean in detail? She pressed, desperate for clarity. He'll receive targeted therapy. We believe it's the best chance for him. It'll be a process, but the team is optimistic, he explained. And though his words were meant to be reassuring, the gravity of therapy lingered like a dark cloud. Sarah nodded slowly, still absorbing the information. Can I see him before what? Before the transport? Before he went to a place she couldn't accompany him? Tears pricked her eyes, hovering at the edges of her vision. Absolutely, but we need to keep this brief, the doctor responded gently. He'll be moved shortly. As they walked toward the room, Sarah felt a tightening in her chest. How could she possibly say goodbye if this was the last time she saw him? When they entered the room, Trevor lay there, looking smaller than ever, but the color had returned to his cheeks, a sign of life and strength. Hey buddy, she whispered, voice trembling with emotion. Mom! Trevor's eyes lit up, and her heart soared at his joy, though it was mixed with dread. Are we going home soon? Soon, sweetheart. They're just taking you for some special help to make you feel better, she said, fighting to keep her voice strong. You're so brave and I'm proud of you. Can I have a cookie? He asked, his innocent question breaking her heart in the softest way. Sarah chuckled through her tears, of course. Multiple cookies when you get home. Just you wait. Promise? He said, his gaze unwavering. Promise, she replied, brushing her thumb across his forehead. As the nurse entered, she prepared for the transfer. We have to move now, she said, checking the equipment. Sarah's heart clenched. Remember, I'm right here, Trev. You're never alone. Okay, Mom, he whispered, and even in his fragility, he projected an innocence that reminded Sarah of how strong he truly was. As the nurse began to prepare the stretcher, Trevor's tiny hand slipped from hers. The visual was like a blow to the gut. She forced herself to smile, holding back tears. I'll be waiting for you, buddy. I promise to be right here. I love you, Mom, he called as they wheeled him away, the sound of the machines beeping accompanying them like a haunting lullaby. I love you too, sweet boy. Always. Once outside, Sarah felt the adrenaline give way to exhaustion, leaving her trembling caught between raw love and fear. Danny stood beside her, his presence a steady anchor. You did great, he murmured, allowing her to draw strength from him yet again. What happens next? She asked, her voice shaky, fear creeping back in waves. They'll take him to specialists. We should be expecting updates soon enough. Just breathe. You're stronger than you know, Danny said gently, placing a hand on her back. She nodded, a flicker of gratitude igniting in her chest. As they settled back into the waiting area, the minutes dragged on. Thoughts of Trevor washed over her, his laughter, his innocent joy, and all the moments they had shared. She brushed her fingers over the text from her sister, holding on to the promise of support, knowing it would come. "I'm scared, Danny," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know. But you're doing the hardest part right now, finding the courage. You just have to keep hoping. For him. For you." He turned to face her, his expression filled with sincerity. She looked into his eyes, and in that moment something in her shifted. She felt the warmth of connection, a bridge of shared experiences and emotions forming, not only from their past, but in this shared battle for Trevor. "I don't know what I would do without you," she confessed, and the words felt heavy with meaning. "You won't have to find out. We'll get through this together," Danny promised, and just like that, she took comfort in his words. An hour stretched into 2, but their collective strength tethered her to hope. Just then, a doctor she recognized approached them, and her pulse quickened. "Sarah." He addressed her, and the weight of the world fell to silence around them. "Yes," she replied, breath catching in her throat. "Trevor is doing better than we expected. We've begun the therapy and he's responding well. He'll have to stay a bit longer, but we're hopeful." Her heart leaped into her throat, the weight of relief washing over her like a gentle tide. "Really?" she said, her voice tinged with disbelief and joy. "Yes. It's still early, but he's strong and we're going to keep a close eye on him. If all goes well, you'll be able to see him tomorrow." The torrent of emotion broke inside her, and tears flowed freely. "Thank you so much," she whispered, heart swelling with gratitude as the doctor walked away. Sarah looked at Danny, who was smiling wide. They created a small bubble of excitement around them, and she felt lighter than she had in hours. "See, strength found," he encouraged softly, and she grinned through her tears. In that moment, she knew they would face whatever came next together, her, Danny, and Trevor. They had found unity in chaos and resolve in uncertainty. As the hours turned into plans for tomorrow, she felt ready to embrace the next chapter. She would fight for Trevor, and in that fight, she would find her grounding again and possibly forge something deep and new with Danny. "Let us go, Sarah," he said, ready to escort her home and into the comfort of a new dawn. And together, they stepped into the light of possibility, hand in hand into the warmth of an uncertain but promising future. Now, if you enjoyed this emotional roller coaster, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss out on the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm, and keep the amazing stories coming. I want to hear your reactions. Comment below with your feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who you know need to see this transformative journey. Let's spread the hope and connection.